Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters tuned into this radio station. And it's a pleasure for us to Central Phase Radio, Royal Central Phase Radio. And it's a pleasure for us, representatives of the St. Kitts National Men's Council, to be back with you with another discussion, to share with you, as it were, ideas on a topic which we think is of not just interest but of import to our society, and we want to just ventilate our views. And we would have preferred, of course, if you were able to call in simultaneous with the broadcast, but we imagine that we will get there sooner than later. Today, Monday, 2nd June 2025. June actually is our month as men. Father's Day falls within this month. And we're talking today about multiple genders. Where do we as men stand? Where does the St. Kitts National Men's Council stand with respect to this evolving and vexatious issue of multiple genders? Because a lot of us are convinced, and I am one of them, that Almighty God, in His unassailable, incomparable, everlasting wisdom, determined at creation that there would be two sexes, male and female. There was no third, there was no addition, there was no deduction or subtraction. Almighty God, the Almighty Creator, decided that two sexes were what He needed in His divine plan, male and female. Now, I'm a student of sociology, and I'm aware that sociologists like to say that whereas sex is a biological reality, a biological fait accompli, gender is a social construct. They like to use that term. In other words, whereas you can look at an individual's physical anatomy, his biological makeup, and determine whether he or she, whether he is a he and she is a she, whether the person is a he or a she, by looking at the individual, and that is how nurses and doctors determine what a baby is, even during the prenatal stages, via ultrasound. They look to see, apart from determining the constituent ingredients of the amniotic sac, they also look to see via the images on the ultrasound what sexual organ appears. Is it the penis? Is it the vagina? If you're born with a vagina, you're female. If you're born with a penis, you're male. But some sociologists like to say that some individuals are born with the wrong sex. That person who was born with a penis really and truly has far more female genes. He has far more XX genes than XY genes. And that is why he ends up being effeminate and being girlish and so on. In the same way, only men have the Y gene, the Y chromosome, but some females, they say, have some of the Y chromosome. So we see some females with beard, for example, and we know a lot of girls that are tomboyish. But to me, that is peripheral. Central to the argument, central to the discussion is the fact that God, Almighty God, the creator of humankind, created two sexes. So we are at a stage of now development in our evolution where people wish to identify themselves, people wish to describe themselves via various genders. So we have moved away, ladies and gentlemen, from the dichotomous description of sexes, male and female, and we now have a broader spectrum of genders, so to speak. And by the way, there's a very close interplay between sex and gender. I don't want to go into the academic subdivisions, because this is not a school lesson, as it were. This is not one of my lessons in sociology. I've taught sociology for a number of years at A level. So this is just a matter of a public discussion with you via this forum. But there's a broader spectrum of genders now being supported, now being promoted. And we want to just expatiate a bit on what some of these genders are what they entail, and how is it people come to a stage where a person with a penis wants to say that he is not male, and a person with a vagina wants to argue that she's not a female. So we used to have just the binary male and or female, as it were. And I still subscribe to that. Male and female. And by the way, I don't know many of you are aware that even here in St. Kitts on our passport forms, this new government, in its wisdom, although I would prefer to say its lack of it, have included a third option on the passport form with respect to gender. You're male, female, or other. You're male, female, or other. I don't know what other refers to, because I don't see how somebody could be other than male or female. Alright? But some of the major non-binary, because binary simply means, from the word bi, of course, meaning two, male or female. Non-binary means persons don't subscribe to the theory that there are just two genders. And they're promoting this new philosophy. They're mounting a new platform that there are in fact multiple genders. And some of the major ones are transgender, which means that one wishes to assume an identity different from the sex that he or she was born with at birth. So a person born with the male characteristics of the male sex wants to become a female, as it were. Now, that sounds wrong, doesn't it? Let's be honest here. That sounds like an aberration. That sounds like a perversion. And I am unapologetic and unrepentant in my view that is it in fact an aberration. So we have the transgender. We have this cisgender. That is what most of us are, cisgender. The sex that we were born with at birth is correct and commonsensical, and so we subscribe to the binary position. We have, imagine that there are people who claim that they are gender fluid, so that their genders change over time. Could you imagine that? People are saying that they're gender fluid, meaning that their genders change over time, that they're not permanently male or permanently female, that they can interchange and exchange as they wish. Then we have some persons who are gender neutral. They really don't identify themselves as either male or female. Hey, I'm neutral, you're neither PAM nor Labour, or PLP for that matter, because PLP is a rising force in the Federation. They're neutral. Okay? We have people who are gender queer. They're gender queer. Which means that they subscribe to the view that they can have or experience or exhibit multiple genders at the same time. Let's think about that for a while. You want a child to come home and tell you, Mommy, Daddy, I am gender queer, you know. I am male and I am female and I am other things in between there. Then we also have some people who call themselves pangender. All the genders possible. They see themselves as having sections or portions or characteristics of all the various genders. And they argue, and this is my last point for the time being, that many of these genders are fluid, that our genders are fluid. I will counter that, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, by contending that our genders are fixed. Fixed at birth. I know that there are those who argue that gender is not immutable. And that gender is not irreversible. Because we know that there are persons who have actually had sex changes. But my position is, and I would be glad to see the Men's Council officially adopt the position, that in truth and fact only two genders should obtain, male and female. And ladies and gentlemen, I am of the male gender, 100%. I turn you over now to my fellow panelists. We have the treasurer of the Men's Council, Dwight Berridge, and we have the immediate past president, Melvin Agard. I'm not sure who will go next, but it's over to them until I return with another intervention.
Okay, let me think that I am here, and I can give my 2 cents. Now, theorists and psychologists, there are many theorists who talk about this issue of multiple genders. There's one called Judith Butler. In an article she wrote, Gender Trouble, in 1990, she said that gender is not something that someone is. It is something that someone does. It is an act, a doing rather than a being. And then, so Butler is challenging the idea that gender is fixed. Instead, she's arguing that gender is performative. It is expressed through behavior, not biology. And then another one went on to say Bell Hooks, in Cultural Critic and Activist. He said the first act of violence that patriarchy demands of males is not violence toward women. Instead, patriarchy demands of all males that they engage in acts of psychic self-mutilation, that they kill off the emotional parts of themselves. And he's speaking directly to how traditional masculinity harms men, calling for a re-imaging of the male, of male identity that allows emotional expression and connection. So the issue of multiple genders, there are those who are saying, well, gender is no longer understood as strict binary, male or female, but a spectrum of identities that reflect personal, cultural, and social realities. The question here is really, where do we stand as a council, the men council? Where do we stand? And what is our view on this? What the member Blake talked about sex and gender, and there's a difference, between the two. And he also made reference to the Bible, what the Bible has to say in relation to the gender. God created man, male and female. He didn't create in between or all these other
any other sex.
Sex, yes.
Any other sex.
And you mentioned transgender. What do you call those other things there? Those other aspects of it. Transgender. You had a whole list of them. Yeah. So none of those things. You have male. You have female. And multiple gender was. Why? How is it? Why is it that this thing is just beginning to take so much attention today? Social awareness about where everybody's talking about having tolerance for LGBTQ and so on, and there's more visibility to the media. The media is magnifying it. In education, they have the activists who are coming out and so on, and there's a lot of research coming out about that. Gender is influenced by a mix of biological, psychological, and environmental factors. Not the things that not the biological so much now, but all these other things influencing this gender diversity issue, and greater recognition of the right to self-identity and live without discrimination. So where is it? What is the challenge for us? Where do we stand? What can we do? Some men are feeling threatened or confused by gender expansion, fearing the loss of identity or privilege. Others are struggling with changing expectations around the work, the family, and emotional openness. And as men, I can say that we can explore a broader, we can reflect on our masculinity. We can be part of the conversation. We can make persons aware of the implications, what gender is all about. We don't want to, I don't know if you guys are of the view, but this is I don't think we want to discriminate or exclude, put persons aside, or have them feel less because of their thinking towards this issue of multiple genders. But we want, as it were, to educate. We want to make a positive contribution to bring awareness to this issue, and in society where everybody understands the importance of this issue, and value and respect persons. I'm not saying that I am subscribing to any this thing about the transgender and all these things, but in the midst of all of this, I believe that we can still bring awareness and show respect, even though we may not be of the view, we may not agree with certain principles and stance that people take in relation to this. We can still make a positive impact, and we can still bring about a change, causing them to rethink.
That's you?
For now.
Okay, well, I got to bring in the Bible on this. So, the word gender, Blake is one of the architects for the English language. So, the word gender in the 15th century took on some expansions. But if you go behind that, into biblical time, the word gender was used more so for procreation, like to bring forth, to birth, to born, and it's been used like maybe 2 or 3 times in the Bible, and it was referring to like animals procreating, like people gendering things, meaning you're bringing forth bad seeds. The whole concept was to procreate, and procreation only happened between male and female, right? So if we look at the situation with what the Romans 1 was talking about, where you talk about men, you actually talk about women basically in one sense giving up themselves to do different things, and the Bible says it this way, and that's why we probably end up how we are, that he has given up to the vileness of their minds. So they're no longer operating as how when the Almighty created, he said, I created the man in his own image and likeness. Man have strayed from that image and strayed from that likeness. And right, so I use the word man because most of these weird, nasty, strange things is men basically pushing it, benefiting from it, and the women tag along in realizing how the men using them to overrun them with all sorts of different things. Let's give an example. If a man, for instance, decide, well, he ain't really making it in the MMA, but he identifies as a woman, so he go to the women's MMA just so that he could beat up the women them over there and probably win a belt. Or maybe in track and field, he ain't really getting the kind of winnings that he would like. So he identifies as a woman and get to go on the starting line with the girls and seem to win a race, because it's quite clear that men and women are different. Men have prostate, women have ovaries. Men have XY, women have only X. So we're different. Men have the muscle fiber, I think, in men, is a little bit more, it's just more in men than women. That's why the CDC recommend that men drink 80 ounces of water, women drink 60 ounces, because of the muscle different, the muscle mass and these different things and so on. So we are different. We are biologically different. When it comes to the psychology, we are different. That's why you see more women would probably watch a Tyler Perry movie than a man. That's why you see also a man would probably watch a documentary about something educational, while a woman might watch Barbie, the Barbie doll movie. We're different. We have different things that we like, different things that grab our interest and so on. But it's just that when men drop the ball, because the whole biblical talk, even though the story said that Eve went and did what she did, she was not really held responsible for that. Because when Christ came, he said, for by one man. He didn't say a man and a woman. He didn't say a woman started and a man finished it. By one man sin came into the world. Which means man always have the authority and the opportunity to set things right. But because man mind gets so vile now, it's not about setting anything right, but now coming up with all these strange things as Blake spoke about earlier, all these different gender, and it's just getting crazier and crazier and crazier. So the Men's Council, as the other two might have expressed, that is all about male and female, because in only such that there's the natural procreation affair that the Almighty created us to engage in and to bring forth children. And we could see right now we have a lot of issues with these youths because the selfishness of the men, they ain't even considering, well, what about the youths and them? When you start to behave a certain way, does this somehow mess up the genetic strain, and then the youths them now start to born with certain defects, and so on and so on. We see, for instance, we sometimes hear when we in certain conversations that, oh, well, you all should bring along a child with you. No, a child have the place, and the adult have the place. As I say, when I was a child, I speak as a child. Now I've become a man, I do man things. So sometimes you can't mix certain conversation. And then it now become worse because now that you have the children then with more options on the table that they could identify as, and it goes outside of the scope of, I don't even know if it's genders anymore, because now you could identify as a dog, a tree, a car, maybe, you could just identify as whatever you want to be, and you're supposed to be given that respect, as you say, that you identify as. So it's just crazy. You have nothing governing it. It's just what's governing it is nonsense and just nastiness, So, and as Dwight was talking about some woman, they're talking something about whatever. Yeah, why they don't just leave the word gender alone and come up with something else? Because once you keep changing these words, it start messing with the whole English language. And I guess maybe the other languages, them now, that's going to take a translation from that, messing up all of that too. But yes, the Men's Council definitely stand on the whole concept that the genders, as we know it, male, female. As Father designed it, male, female. The vileness, the nature of sin have taken man to the point where the Almighty have given them over to the vileness of the mind. And that's why now they want to do everything considered to be nasty. And it's really going to get worse. Yeah, that's my area.
Okay, thank you. We're going to get back to Brother Agard and Dwight, of course, shortly. Now, a lot of us have reason to be displeased with Donald John Trump. And he has said a lot of things which really are quite annoying, almost ridiculous. But we have to admit that he made a very correct, powerful statement. There are only two sexes. One of the few things that he has said which are correct, or which is correct. Only two sexes, male and female. Now, when Dwight was speaking, he was quoting from some obscure individual, because to tell the truth, I think I have read quite a bit into, in fact, as part of my studies at undergraduate and postgraduate level, I would have, and because of my intrinsic love for the discipline sociology, I would have come across a lot of these writers, both in the distant past, near past, and in the recent past. And I don't recall either of the names that he quoted.
Judith Butler?
But she says, or the person says, that gender is what someone does. And that needs some explanation. An identity, an individual's identity is what he does. So how is gender further refined? Not just defined, because that's a poor definition in my view. How is it further refined? That gender is what someone does. I don't know if I can expatiate on that.
Okay.
No, of course, when the time comes, all right, as opposed to what someone is. And Agard spoke of a couple of things which I wanted to also expound on a bit. For example, the biological differences with which we are born with a particular sex at birth. And the biological differences that occur between men and women give rise give birth, as it were, to a host of other differences in tastes, in values, in approach, in preferences, in how they deploy certain responses to certain stimuli. The fact that somebody is female and someone is male is the reason why we differ in so many ways, fundamentally or often, in terms of how we respond and how we approach, how we deploy our resources to deal with our environment. Clearly. Clearly. And there's so many of them. There's so many of them. I mean, Agar spoke about the very difference in the physical body mass, the muscle mass, where Almighty God in His wisdom gave men more of that kind of physical strength, which means that he can run faster. It's going to take maybe two centuries for any woman, any female, to run as fast as Usain Bolt did at 9.58 in 100 meters. Women can hardly approximate 10, far less 9.58. Why? Because of their body structure. Why can women wear these narrow, long heels without any problems? And if I were to try that, not just now at my age stage, but even when I was in sixth form, as a youngster, when I'm in my prime, I were to try that. I mean, I'd stumble and fall without taking 2 steps. You know? The way women stand, the way I mean, I don't understand how a man could want to say he's female. He's female.
That's nasty.
He doesn't identify with the male gender. He's female. So he menstruates. What's going on here? So I wanted to strengthen that point that Agard made, that the biological differences produce a multiplicity of other differences in terms of how men and women approach and understand the world around them. My question, one of the questions I have is, why is it that humans, we are supposed to be the most intelligent of the species, of the various creatures, the various creations, whether they be plants, animals, minerals, why is it that it's humans who tend to do these who tend to engage in these abominations? How is it that dogs are either male or female, and butterflies are male or female, that plants are either male or female, but men, with all our intelligence and sense and sophistication, we want male, female, and other things? What's going on here? I mean, I don't understand that at all.
Still there's some animals that
You know?
that are bisexual.
What are the implications, ladies and gentlemen, for youngsters? And Agard was referring to that a little bit as well. How are we going to train our youth, our young people? And for me, I've said it in the men's council before, the epitome of youth are found in the high schools, right? Up to 19. You're a child, then you're an infant, then a child, then a young person. And after that, you become an adult. How are we going to train our young people to deal with these so-called new realities, this new spectrum that is being concocted or constructed, where one can easily say, one has the right to say he's no longer male. He has a penis, whether it be big and firm and hard or flabby and limp. He has a penis. He's physically male, but no, he wants to be female. How are we gonna deal with that? What are the implications for procreation, as Agard discussed? Because I have that right here. For relationships, for population growth, for the sustenance of mankind. If we were to continue, if we were to allow this thing to expand and grow and saturate society, where a man can decide to deflect from being a male and he wants to become gender fluid, where his gender changes over time. I think it should be illegal for anyone to change his sex or her sex. I don't think it should be allowed in any country. I don't think any laws anywhere should allow an individual to go under a surgeon's knife and say, I'm going to change from male to female or vice versa. I think that in the same way it is illegal to commit suicide and even for doctors to help you to die, to kill yourself. So many things are illegal, by the way. I think it should not be allowed. No one should have the right to say, I am going to change my sex. And personally, I would want nothing to do with an individual who, having been born male, converts or reverts or subverts to female, or to a female who is now male. Personally, call it discrimination if you wish. I am guilty as charged because I personally will not want to have anything to do with that individual.
Yeah, I too. I wouldn't say I'm not on to do with them, but I wouldn't want to have dealings with them in association, you know, being with them or, you know, and but I if they talk to me, I'll talk back. But yeah, but the thing is.
Oh, thanks for telling me that because it means that if I say them, I'll send them to you.
Oh no.
Okay? Yeah, I'll refer them to you.
No.
Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
If I'm doing business and if I have
I'll
a
refer them to
business,
you. Carry on.
if I have a business and someone comes in to do business and he's
I'll give them your name and number, no problem.
No problem. Well, okay. But sex, you talk about sex and you talk about gender. They're saying that sex refers to biological attributes like chromosomes, hormones, and anatomy. And they're saying gender refers to social and cultural roles, behaviors, and identities. So
Yeah, but then the social and behavioral roles are contingent upon the sex. That is why we ascribe certain behaviors, certain traits, certain predispositions to the male and certain other ones to the female. It is the same physical, biological realities that dictate the social and environmental and behavioral laws. You cannot extricate them. They're inevitably and inextricably intertwined.
So the shift that what we're seeing today, we cannot. What can we do? Because we have a voice and we are saying this is what we believe. But if we are in earnest one against 1,000 others, so we can continue. We know what we believe, but I'm just saying, putting out to you on the how they are defining these things today. Gender identity. They're looking at how individuals perceive themselves, and this may align with or differ from the assigned sex at birth. So, well, you mentioned a while ago, remember Blake, that no one should have the right to say, I'm going to be changing my sex. I don't like it. I was born a male or female. I was born a male, I want to be a female. Or I was born a female and I want to be a male. People they're saying, well, you know, people have a right to govern their own lives, make changes, or do whatever they want. It's their body.
So we are implying here that the Almighty Creator erred in assigning a sex to your birth. That he made a mistake.
Yeah.
That nature is in error. Nature gave you the. That's what we're saying.
No,
But you can believe that if you wish.
No, I don't
do not
believe that.
attract you.
I'm just saying. I don't agree with it, but that would be the argument. People would bring forward, and so multiple genders, binary gender system, gender identity, gender expression, how someone presents his gender or her gender outwardly. Like, for example, how they wear their clothes, how they behave, how they speak, their voice, the intonation, and so on. Gender expression. That's one of the things that can be looked into. But why is this gaining so much attention? You know, what happens obtains out there on the international scene affects us. So if the more somebody says something, if you say it more often than not, it becomes
repetition.
Yeah.
How that go? You're a teacher.
And we have to be cognizant of that. And we although we don't subscribe to these things, the reality is that is what is happening. How do we deal with it?
Well, interestingly, that because I normally blame men for everything. If men actually be men the way they're supposed to be men, and be the examples in society for the youths to follow, this gender issue wouldn't be an issue at all. But the fact that we're even talking about it is giving it some attention. But at the same time, it may need that little bit attention to probably establish our position in it. But at the same time, like I was saying, is that it's more about being the example. It's more about teaching what we can teach when it comes to the movement that is basically pushing this vile, this nasty, and I keep referring to it as nasty.
It is nasty.
That's how I see it, And but I just want to read something here from the book still, He say here, and this is Romans 1, and for those of you who are listening and you have your Bible, you could always go look it up. He said, for who changed the truth of God into a lie, and worshipped and served the creature more than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. For this cause, God gave them up unto vile affections. For even their women did change their natural use into that which is against nature. And likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of the women, born in their lust one towards another, men with men, walking that which is unseemly, and receiving in themselves that recompense of their error, which was meet. So I'm just saying that in the latter why and how is within the whole error of man. Man have sinned, man have gone against the principles of the Most High. And we are not seeing the ministries, the churches, the synagogues, the people who say that they follow in this word, preaching against these things. As a matter of fact, we know recently, well, maybe about a year or two ago, the whole idea of buggery became like something now that is almost like legal. There's no policing of it. Of course, there's constant policing of marijuana, even though it's no longer the way it was in terms of being so much illegal. But yet, yeah, the Christian council, the churches, nobody came on any public stage to condemn the change of the buggery law.
Not a man.
But we as a Rastafarian group, went on the radio and publicly denounced that. No Christian group did it. All you would hear is, well, I hear my pastor talking about it. Yeah, you're right, Blake.
Yeah.
Even till today, this very date, no Christian group,
organization,
nothing, no one came out and speak
said,
against the change of the buggery law.
Yeah.
So we could see clearly that even this issue of gender, it might be a little burdensome for some of them. I think that we get a little bit lazy. We just want to do things that seemingly excite us and propose that it may excite the children, them, and do all sorts of nonsense throughout the year and so on. Like right now, we see Halloween is visiting the Caribbean in an aggressive state right now, where the schools and the churches are now involved in this. And the things that the Bible tell them that they should do, hear what they would say. Well, we don't have to do that. But Father's Day coming up, must be Sunday, Mother's Day, and all these things they keep. Matter of fact, all these days that are recognized within the UN and what's not, they do these things. You'll not hear them say, well, we don't have to do these things. Instead, they spend the money, they put in this great effort, they buy the Christmas tree, and do all these things that is an abomination unto the Most High. But the things, simple things that he said do, just come together three times in the year. Hear him say 12, because it's 12 months we're dealing with. 3 times in the year, just come to me. That is too much for them to do. Keep the Sabbath, the holy. Don't do this. No, but that's Old Testament stuff. Now, if the churches are silent on these things and only doing things that they see as entertainment for themselves, what happened to these children who are going to these churches? And outside of the church, we see that a lot of men out there, because when they come to the domino board, that stupid game, domino board, and maybe going in a jam and them kind of things there. The youths, them watching all these things, because remember, the children, they mimic what they see and what they hear. That's why if you put a child among Spanish-speaking people, a couple of years later, you visit, that's what he's going to be speaking or she's going to be speaking. So if you are being silent about these things. But while you're silent, guess who ain't silent? TikTok is not silent. Facebook is not silent. YouTube is not silent. All these social media platforms, they're not silent because, you know, they're there to fill these spaces that we left open. And the youths them now are going to have questions. They're going to be mimicking some of these things. And they might be a little strange to some of you because you have never paid attention to the situation. It's just like when the Sankis government give out laptops. Parents, they may even know nothing about laptops. The teachers, they may even know about laptops. But there was no way, no managing of the use of the laptops with the youths. I mean, I propose at one point, you know, why not get all of them MAC address and so on and make sure that the youths them can log on to this and log on to that. And I guess that just the whole idea to think about doing something that makes sense seemed to be a tiresome thought. So let me just don't do that. Let me just leave it away. And this is what we're dealing with. And I think that the youths and them, I'm very much concerned about the youths them because, well, sometimes we throw up your hand like, what's wrong with the youths today? We never take a little time and realize we are the ones who are being silent when we should have been speaking. And then we're speaking when we should have been silent. And we are not setting the examples that the youths them could become the best version of themselves. Instead, they are mimicking things that are unnatural to them, unnatural to their society. And these are the things that they are now bringing home as conversations and ideas.
Yeah, well, Dwight was asking earlier why there's a lot of interest in this unnatural behavior. It's just part of a trend. It's a lot of social decadence and moral decay that we're experiencing. I mean, men are marrying men. I mean, you want anything more abominable than that? I find it hard to identify any behavior, past or present, worse than a man referring to another man as his husband.
What about wife? To me, wife so.
No, I hear them saying, he's my husband. I don't hear them saying he's my wife.
Oh, okay.
But they're marrying a man, and a man is comfortable saying, this is my husband. I mean, so if we allow this gender issue to take real deep root, that's what we're going to have. Because one man is going to say identify as a female. So another male is going to say, well, okay, then I'm going to go with him. Because he's female. So let me see if I can enjoy with him the pleasures that a man should normally enjoy with a female. But this is a male who is identifying as a male. And we are allowing it in our law. So, men marrying men, and I want to make that abundantly clear tonight. That for me, this individual here, Michael S. for Simple Blake, a man marrying a man is easily, to use God's word, nastiest, vilest, most abominable, most repugnant, most repulsive acts that can ever happen. And we're having it on a regular basis in many countries. Thank God Almighty, it has not yet been made legal here, but I believe that it's going to happen only in a matter of time. Alright? We have men, I read a fellow, 25, marrying his 84-year-old grandmother in India recently. He was legally allowed to marry his grandmother. 24 versus 85. I don't know what is that. A child was legally married to her dog. I read of some instances where people get married to trees. Oh yeah, this is what is happening. And these are legally sanctioned and valid marriages, if you wish.
You see?
Right? But there's so many other things that we're doing which are totally wrong. We're burning the forests, we're cutting down forests, we're polluting the oceans, we're deliberately putting deadly ingredients in food, including babies' food, on a regular basis. We are violently aggressive towards one another. In Bangladesh recently, there was a big demonstration by students doing what? They were demanding the right to cheat in exams. Big demonstration. They were demanding the right to cheat on exams. That's where we are
Crazy.
in 2025.
I'm not surprised at that at all.
There's a group in the Netherlands fighting to get the laws about to outlaw pedophilia. There are laws on the books that make pedophilia an offense. They want to outlaw that. They want to be able to. They want to be free to do what they like with children of any age.
Yeah.
This is the kind of society we live in 2025.
Yeah.
And the gender issue this so-called multiple genders is one of many. And this is why we need more groups like the Men's Council to stand up and make it abundantly clear that we, even though we might be a minority, we are against that.
We denounce it.
That's my position, brothers, ladies and gentlemen.
I just wanted to speak a little bit about the marriage thing, and like everything else, you know, once you stray from nature and the word that the Father had put forth for us to follow, then it basically set the stage for all sorts of weird things to happen. Because marriage was never a matter of legal and church and involvement and what's not. Marriage was just a consensual affair between families and adults, where people come together. It was sealed by sex, or some of them actually have contracts with families and so on, and that's what marriage was. But when you put marriage now into the hand of a country legal system, of course, yes, a man can marry a chair, a man can marry a bush, you know, because you have now moved from what marriage really was to now a new
A corruption of what
marriage.
marriage. Yeah.
Because how it was, it was a consensual. I mean, how a chair would consent to get married? how a chair would consent? Because it was all about consent, and it was more family based. So now we put it into the hands of the legal system. A lot of people don't even know here that church, even though you see weddings being kept in church, that church absolutely have nothing to do with marriage. They have to get the legal paperwork from the court. The court that's why the pastor said, by the power invested in me, they don't listen to that part. By the power invested in me, and sometimes he don't add it on, but he would sometimes say, by the court, or the state, sorry, I now pronounce you man and wife. So man has moved from that. But yeah, I would want to end this off, because I suppose that we about to wrap up just now, by saying that, you know, the Father have given us a wall. Even before man heard, in his great wisdom, he has prepared everything for us. Even for us to understand that these very vile, nasty, out other things that is happening, that even these things will come. We just didn't know how they would look, but because we are living in this dispensation now, we actually seeing things that those who passed gone may have just read some of the weirdness was supposed to happen. But for them, I'm sure they had no imagination to what we are seeing and hearing now. Just as we, right now, may not be able to imagine what is to come. Because there still was to come.
Oh, yeah.
I do believe that. Yeah. You know? So...
It's going to be hard to beat men married. I think it's...
Well, a man marrying a tree and so might be a little...
Well,
it might be above.
Yeah, but at least the tree cannot, as you said, consent.
Yeah.
But a man actually consciously
Consented
agreeing
Yeah.
to do that?
Yeah, it's just...
Well, you got to be kidding me. But I see did a lot of wrong things, but I see was right in terms of the treatment of those kind of people.
Yeah. But men, you see, if men, and we see in St. Kitts the men, it's very difficult now to identify men, make it worse to identify the other genders. Because, in finding out certain things now, there's a lot of men who probably patrolling the streets as our friends and families and so on, who we are not sure where they stand in terms of the whole sex, whether you're male, female, or you're trying to be male and female in one, and so on and so on. So we see, for instance, our system of school is just women, most government departments, just women, men working in the construction sites, men at the top running the country, assigning women to various positions, leaving certain men behind, trying out boys out of school, probably hoping they would roll over and die, but they don't roll over and die. They come, they terrorize your community, and so on. Some of them, they're not marketable, you didn't prepare them for that. The teachers, them claiming that they're teaching, yet a lot of the youth, them coming out can't read, pay attention to a very small percentage, and say, oh, hey, we did good because they passed, they did well.
Yeah, 5 out of 100.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's success.
And you're satisfied with that.
So he get 20 subjects, he passed 20 subjects. One student out of 40 passed 20 subjects, but 35 of the 40 passed none. And they point at that one.
Yeah.
Success.
But Blake, if in school now, the child do exam, and get 5 out of 40, they say he failed.
Yeah.
So how is it? It's a success story for the school to honor just 5 out of the 40.
But the man, I have had my problems with the Ministry of Education over the years, and I'm looking forward to an opportunity, to more opportunities to expound and expose the folly that's going on in education, you know. In fact, I may very well ask the owner, director of this radio, this station here, to give me an opportunity to come in by myself and expound and expose the folly and the fallacy and the fakery that is passing for education in St. Kitts at this moment. Because it is really, it's a crime what is happening.
Yeah, but the teachers them
No
thinking
teaching
that-
and learning is happening, taking place in the schools.
Yeah.
Tell them I say so. No teaching and learning is taking place in the schools. Very little. In sociology, we learn that something has to be a minimum of 5% to be statistically significant. Well, we have in even less than 5% so-called success in education. In fact, I have for years challenged the Ministry of Education, and somebody want to take this and run with it. What is the Ministry of Education official definition of success in education?
I would like to hear that.
How do they measure success in education?
I would love to hear.
Ask the Minister of Education. Ask the Permanent Secretary. Ask the Chief Education Officer which one of them can articulate a response. They don't. So how do we just move it along? We just marking time. In fact, we're about turn. We have about turned and going backwards now.
Yeah.
So it's not a good place to be in at the moment, especially with respect to education. And I challenge anyone to let's have a debate. Let's have a debate. If anybody wants to contradict what I'm saying in terms of what's going on in education. Because what is not going on is far more important, far more deadly than what is going on. It's a problem we have. But with respect to genders, I believe that we need to keep this thing alive and let people know that it is better, as was designed by the Creator, that we stick to the binary, the dichotomous male and female. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yes.
So before you go, Barry, I just want to add to what Blake was saying and even try to push him to maybe take a stand in a little further by saying this. The ministry or the office of the ecclesiastical affairs, we probably should try to get some sort of understanding as to where the church stand on these things. Because if the churches are registered and getting the concessions and stuff from government, and then we are seeing everything that they're supposed to be dealing with is not being dealt with. We are seeing more of this gender crisis. We are seeing more murders. We are
More
seeing
crime.
more everything.
More violence.
So which means they're not, mind you, okay, so we may argue that some of the ministers in government are not doing so good, but we see roads building, water pipe there, so at least they're doing some work. But we're not seeing anything at all from the churches in the sense of your spiritual group, ministry, because you now are assigned to these situations. We are seeing more, everything on the negative side.
Yeah, more immorality,
Yeah.
more greed, more selfishness.
So we would like to know, based on the Christian Council and the Evangelical Association and the unregistered churches, where exactly do they stand
Maybe let's
in
disband it.
defending these things? Because to me, government should take back all of these
Privileges
that they have.
Yeah.
You know, because there's nothing demonstrating that they are doing anything.
They're not worth it.
Exactly.
They don't deserve it. It's really a shame. That's a serious point. I'm going to look into that.
Yes, I would like you to do that.
Bring it up in Bible study, next Bible study session I attend.
Okay.
Yes, I want to say in conclusion that this issue of multiple genders, it's here, and that's the reality. And we are part of the conversation as men. We can make a difference through education. We recognize that there are problems with the system, and but we can still make a difference. Or just the fact that we are here having a discussion about it brings awareness. Where do we stand? Yes, I believe that we are on the grounds male and female, no multiple, triple or whatever. All these other aspects that people are looking into. We are of the view that it's male, God created male and female. And we need to continue to promote that. And we need to, yes, I don't know if you'll agree with me, but be tolerant still and respect people, right? Not agree with them, not subscribe to their thinking, but still show that we care. Empathy, that's what it's all about. Well, we, when I say that we love what they're doing, but respect, okay?
Yeah.
Tolerance. So those are my parting words, and I really think it's a good discussion, and we need to continue to bring awareness.
Yeah, it's difficult to divorce a man from what he does. A man is what he does. Thank you.
Dwight,
That's it.
you will finish, right? Dwight, I would love for you.